So happy to be joined by a rising star in the business. We can say we remember him way back when.
Yeah.
He is now ESPN's NFL draft analyst, Jordan Reid. And Jordan, it is great to see you here. You're suited up. You're ready. It's the combine. It's draft season. And for the Browns, we haven't had a first-round pick in 3 years. Not a great season, but we're picking second. And so an opportunity to maybe have a franchise-changing draft. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, first and foremost, welcome back.
Yeah, man, it's good. Yeah, it's good to be back with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Exciting times for the Browns. Having a number 2 overall pick, there's a lot of different directions that they could go.
Are there?
Yeah, there's a lot of different directions that they can go, but the one I think they should go, or I believe they should go, is the quarterback. I just believe they have to take a quarterback. Whenever you're in position to select a quarterback, I believe you should do so. And nothing matters in a roster rebuild or roster construction until you get that spot solidified.
Have you been watching our show? These are some of our talking
not
points.
at all.
I love this.
Great
This
minds
is
think
fantastic.
alike.
Exactly. So I'm with you. So I think that you have an opportunity. You've been thrown in some ways a life raft by some of the decisions other teams have made at the end of the season, and the Browns all of a sudden kind of just, here we are at number 2. You and I were talking before, and we'll talk about it now, but there is we'll call it, in quotes, a consensus that there are 2 quarterbacks in this draft that are worthy of being taken at the top. And now some people may say, I like him at 10. Hey, look, if you like quarterback at 10, you like him at 2, because that seems to be the deal with that position. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. Let's start with kind of how do you see those 2, and if you were a general manager of a team like the Cleveland Browns, would you be comfortable saying, all right, at 2, I know I can get one of those guys, or do you like one so much better that you'd be like, I got to figure out a way to get up to 1? Because I don't know if you remember this, 2016.
Yeah.
Cleveland Browns picking 2nd, Tennessee Titans picking 1st. Mm-hmm. Browns love Jared Goff. Rams trade up, and now Browns trade out. And after a bunch of different trades, you end up with Corey Coleman and not Jared Goff. So let's start there. 2 quarterbacks. Would you be comfortable with either of them at 2?
Yeah, I would. And as far as how they got here, is very similar, but stylistically they couldn't be any different in my opinion. So just comparing their how they got here moments, 2 quarterbacks that started in the FCS ranks, Cam Ward at Incarnate Word, then Shedeur Sanders obviously at Jackson State. He goes on to Colorado. Cam ends up going to Washington State and then to Miami. So their how they got here moments are very similar from a school standpoint. But stylistically, these 2 guys couldn't be any different in my opinion. Shedeur is more so of your prototypical pocket passer. You're just absolute sniper from inside of the pocket, predicated on ball placement, his vision. But the thing that stands out to me the most is his toughness. I don't think there's a tougher quarterback in this draft class just because some of the hits that he took absolute beatings, not only this season but also last season, even though he surrendered the most sacks over the past 2 seasons, but he still was able to get up and be productive after all of those beatings that he did take. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Cam Ward.
Let me jump. Let's just
yeah, absolutely.
talk Shedeur for a second.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So he's tough. Not only that, many times when he got sacked, he'd make at least one guy miss, but it was in many cases it was a full-on just jailbreak right to the quarterback. And the second point to buttress that is how many of his big-time downfield throws did he get absolutely crushed on, and he knew it, and he would stand in the pocket, deliver it, and take a big hit.
Yeah, a lot of those he did. You can go through pretty much any game that he played last year, and he took a severe amount of hits. But once again, he kept back, or he kept coming back, and he kept firing. And that's what you love to see from a quarterback, just because even though the hits won't be as frequent, you're hoping anyway that he took at Colorado, the mental toughness that it takes not only to keep coming back, but also to bounce back and continue to be productive throughout games. That's something that you love about Shedeur.
So I like that. So pocket passer, sniper. In my mind, you're saying, if he maximizes everything, right, the style in which he would play, I'm not saying he is going to be that guy, but the style in which he would play would be similar to the way that a Drew Brees would dissect a defense.
Yeah, I think they're very similar as far as how they win and how they play the game. Guys that are predicated on anticipatory throws, winning from the pocket, being able to occasionally make plays out of structure and throw some balls down the field, even though that's not really their wheelhouse. But just the vision, understanding the concepts, and then just being able to execute those concepts.
And then on the other side, we've got a guy who maybe is more stylistically kind of like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen in terms of thrives out of structure, chunk play machine, early Patrick Mahomes, I would say, and loves to kind of really push the ball down the field. Brett Favre, a gunslinger.
Yeah, and what I love the most about Cam is just he's kept that underdog mentality everywhere that he's been. And just reflecting back on his story, we're talking about a kid that was severely under-recruited during his time coming out of high school, played in a wing T offense. So there were times where he didn't even throw the ball up to 10 times a game just because you want to run the ball down the throats of everybody in that wing T offense. Goes to Incarnate Word, absolutely lights it up in the FCS ranks, transitions to Washington State, does the same thing, and then at Miami, arguably the best quarterback in program history. So with him, it's just the underdog mentality and then just the confidence that he plays with. He plays with the poise, that calm, cool, collected demeanor. And you mentioned it a couple of seconds ago. And, not comparing him to these guys like Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, but the uncanny ability to make offensive coordinators right, even if they have the play wrong, is something that Cam Ward really thrives in. And also something else that I think he has to really improve on the next level. I love using analogies when I'm talking about quarterbacks. So Cam Ward is that guy that's kind of instructed to jump off the 10 or 15-foot high dive, but there's a lot of times where he gets curious and he wants to jump off that 25 or 30-foot high dive just to see if he's able to do it. So understanding that, don't pass up the first option in this progression just because you have a huge appetite for those down the field or those highlight reel plays.
Well, I was going to say, he kind of reminds me of, when you think about how the NBA games evolved since Steph Curry kind of came into the league, right? Guys like Mahomes or Lamar or Josh Allen, they have kind of made normal what would be in a basketball analogy, kind of the coaches like the no. Yeah.
Good job.
The no threes, and then it's like, oh, yeah, okay, good shot. Cam will do that. I think, one of the things that's interesting when you watch him, and certainly the talent is apparent, the arm talent, the ability to throw it in either direction, the ability to buy time, extend plays, and make those. And what I like about both those guys is both of them, for the most part, if it's a 3rd and 9 and they need to go pick up first down, they will. But most of them try to scramble or buy time to throw, which I like that. That's where some real big plays come in the NFL. If you're kind of thinking about taking that next level, we'll talk about some of the things that Shedeur probably has to clean up as well. But for Cam, how easy is it to coach out of a player to take the things in structure? Because, for example, Cleveland Browns, similar to a Kyle or a McVay, you're going to have things schemed up that are going to be, if you scheme up 7 yards in the NFL, those layups have to be layups. Yeah. And I think the one thing that made me a little nervous with Cam when I watched him was he would be like, boring.
Yeah.
Let me make big plays. But in the NFL, you've got to take those.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of he has to be paired with a demanding position coach and an offensive coordinator that's going to drill in his head like, hey, man, let's just take the first option on the progression. Let's not try to satisfy our appetite of those down-the-field plays. Let's just take the death by 1,000 paper cuts.
But
Let's
they'll
just take
come.
the death by 1,000 paper cuts theory of eventually we're going to matriculate the ball down the field. But also, I will say I don't think it's necessarily coaching it out of him. I think you have to be able to straddle the line of allowing him to be him.
Yeah, what makes him great.
But also saying, hey, man, we got to rein it in a little bit just because you're getting a little bit too reckless with the ball. So just allowing him to be him, but understanding when to rein him in at times too.
And I do think a lot of coaches would say, okay, so maybe on a couple of 3rd and 8s a game, you miss the 9-yard completion because you're going for a big one. But if you hit 3 or 4 40-plusers in a game, we're going to win.
Yeah.
That's the league. And that was in my notes. I kept writing, chunk play machine. He is just a chunk play machine. And then on the other hand, we talked about Shedeur and, so many questions about his arm strength. You were joking about it beforehand, but I don't know. I felt like I watched him make enough kind of far hash, deep out throws into tight windows that I was pretty satisfied. I saw him make all the throws. Is he going to sit there and flick it 70 yards? No, but what was it, the Baylor game to get into overtime? He's running dead left, needs it to get in the end zone, and throws kind of a laser 50 yards in the air. How many throws are more than 50 yards in the air in the NFL? Not many.
Yeah, it was that game and then the UCF game. He had a post route down the middle of the field that was about 55 yards in the air. So I think his arm strength is completely fine. The drive velocity does need to get a little bit better. I will say that. But over time, we've seen guys' arm strength get better once he gets in an NFL strength and conditioning program and then once his body matures as well.
All right, so you're telling Browns fans, look, if the Browns take a quarterback at 2, you'd be happy. Now, I did ask you, if you're running this organization and you're saying you like both of them, but do you like Cam, and I know he's your number 1, that much more that I don't want to have any questions, just get me to number 1 so I control it?
Yeah, I mean, I like Cam Ward that much. And, I've been on the airwaves saying this. I've been on SportsCenter saying it. I believe if Cam was in last year's draft class, he would have been the 4th quarterback off of the board ahead of J.J. McCarthy. And, we had a special class last year, and everybody's using that as the standard, and rightfully so. But if he wasn't last year's draft class, I believe he would have been the fourth guy off of the board.
When I was here last year, and I don't know if it was different for you, but it felt like, and I'd even go back 2 years, that 2 years ago was Bryce Young, and there were a lot more questions about C.J. Stroud than people are seeming to remember because he had, the Ohio State quarterbacks that hadn't done as well before. He's thrown to all number ones. We haven't really seen it, other than the Georgia game.
Yep.
And then last year, it felt like to me, it was Caleb Williams and then everybody else. And nobody was like, oh, no, Jayden Daniels going to turn your franchise around and have maybe the best rookie season ever. So you're being in those groups with those guys, you don't know. But, I mean, right now the Falcons are very happy they took Penix. The Broncos are thrilled they took Bo Nix. And last year at the Combine, Bo Nix was not talked about going in the top 12.
Not at all.
So I think sometimes those comparisons year to year are hard because you have the benefit of hindsight that changes how people feel about Daniels and even Drake May, who I thought had a nice rookie year. If you have an opportunity, though, you're saying get him. Cam Ward. You'd love to have Cam Ward or Shedeur.
There's always a sense of hope when you have a young quarterback.
Of course.
And that's all you can ask for in Cleveland right now. And, let's say that they take Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward and they win, 5 or 6 games next year. You have a leg to stand on and say, hey, give us some time. Let's develop this young quarterback. But if you take the defensive piece, you win 3 games next year, now you're gone and you're out of a job. So I just think they have to select a quarterback just because you can develop that guy. The Deshaun Watson situation obviously was an absolute disaster, and I just think that's a better option than bringing in a veteran, like a Kirk Cousins or somebody like that.
All right, so we got a quarterback going at maybe 1, maybe 2 for the Cleveland Browns, depending on how you play it. So what do quarterbacks need, and I think this league's about scoring now. The rules are so hard to be consistently good on defense, so what do you need? You need weapons. And weapons can come in a variety of forms, whether that's receivers, whether that's move tight ends, whether that's running backs, now that we've seen kind of a resurgence of that position.
Yep.
The Browns not only have number 2, they have number 33. They're going to have the first pick in the second round, an opportunity if they want to cheaply get into the first round at the end and get a fifth-year option as well. Who would be your favorite weapons that you think could be available in that spot? And I really don't care what position, but, receiver, tight end, running back. Who would be your favorite weapons to help that rookie quarterback have some more in addition to Judy, in addition to David Njoku?
So I think there's a cluster of receivers after Teteroa McMillan, the receiver out of Arizona.
I love him. I would love to have him.
He's a good player. I think he's already going to be on the jet headed towards the team that drafted him.
Yes,
by the time
most definitely.
In the second round. But you're looking at guys potentially like Luther Burden III out of Missouri. Emeka Ibuka is another option.
Okay.
Matthew Golden out of Ohio State could be another option too. So those 3 guys definitely could be in play. But tight end definitely is another. If you're looking just for some move guys, Elijah Arroyo.
I liked him when I watched Cam Ward. I was like, who the heck is that guy?
Yeah, Mason Taylor.
I like him.
Jason Taylor's son out of LSU is another good player too. So this tight end class has a lot of high-end players, and the depth of this wide receiver class is more so in day 2.
All right, give me a couple running backs that you think, we heard Browns general manager Andy Berry say that Nick Chubb will be testing free agency this year, and he's been so huge. The 4 years that he had there were as good as any 4-year stretch, certainly in probably Browns history outside of the great Jim Brown. When you look at, what we like to do, that wide zone scheme, who are some of the backs that you think could be, difference makers or guys that are just straight up weapons and would help you out in the pass game as well?
Well, the first thing I will say is that this class is absolutely loaded at running back. It's very reminiscent to, and the star power isn't as great at the top, but it's very reminiscent to what we saw in 2017, and that was the Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara class. But
not bad.
This class, not bad at all. This class is very reminiscent of that. So we had 30 running backs drafted that year. I think we could exceed that number this year as far as how many running backs could get drafted in this year's class. But just looking at some wide zone guys, one that immediately comes to mind is Devin Neal out of Kansas. He's one that is very reminiscent of Kareem Hunt when he was coming out of Toledo, and we saw how productive of a player he was when the Browns drafted him a few years ago. Bashaw Tootin, who's a Virginia Tech running back. He originally started his career at North Carolina A&T and was – see, I'm smiling over there when I said North Carolina A&T. He originally started his career there and then came over to Virginia Tech and is very productive as well. And then another who I think is really scheme versatile is Damian Martinez out of Miami, another player I'm sure you've seen shine when you were studying Cam Ward.
All right, I got to ask this for the great Gibbe here.
Oh,
It's not often that Bowling
Here we
Green
go.
has a guy that,
Oh,
that
yeah.
people are
Harold
excited
Fannin,
about.
baby.
Yeah.
Harold
So
Fannin.
what do you think about Harold Fannin?
Yeah, I like him. He's super productive. I thought he should have won the Mackey Award over Tyler Warren.
Where do
I'll
you
go
like
to my
him?
grave saying that.
Early third?
Yeah, I think he'll probably go. I would say that third round range, early fourth round. It all depends on how he tests. I don't think he's going to be an overly good tester just because he's not a great mover or a really great athlete.
He's a unique mover.
But he's one of those guys that's just a gamer. You roll the balls out at gym class, he's going to be the best athlete just because he's so natural as far as pass catching.
Yeah.
And then from
what was it,
route
Penn
running,
State, and then and Texas A&M? Were those the two?
Yeah.
And he was running away from those guys.
super productive in both games. They tried to game plan to double team him and stop him, and they couldn't do it. So he's one of those guys that's not going to be an overly good tester, but that's just a gamer.
He's just a football player.
Yeah, just a football player.
All right, Jordan, we appreciate the time. Thanks for laying it out in a variety of ways for the good folks here. You can catch him on ESPN. He's their NFL draft expert, Jordan Reid. Thanks so much, brother.
Thanks for having me.
All right.